You know what they say about family. That blood is thicker than water. Well, let me tell you something, honey. Sometimes that blood can feel like quicksand, pulling you down until you forget you were ever meant to fly. My name is Mildred. Mildred Catherine Wells. For the past 15 years, nobody's called me that. I've been Grandma Millie, or Mom, or sometimes just her, when they think I can't hear. But today, sitting here on this beautiful Spanish coast, I want you to know my real name. Because for 74 years, I've been Mildred, and I almost forgot that myself. 3 months ago, I was sitting in my little kitchen in Portland, Oregon, watching the rain streak down my windows like tears. I wasn't allowed to cry. My son Robert, Bobby, I used to call him when he'd scrape his knees and come running to me, was standing there with his wife Patricia, telling me about their family vacation to Greece. Mom, he said, not even looking at me while he scrolled through his phone. We've decided to take the kids to Santorini for 2 weeks. It's going to be amazing, the whole family together. I felt my heart lift for just a moment. The whole family together. I started thinking about what I'd packed, wondering if my old passport was still valid. Of course, Patricia chimed in, her voice syrupy sweet like it gets when she's about to deliver bad news. We'll need someone to stay here and take care of the house. You know, water the plants, collect the mail, make sure everything's secure. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the whole family. I was the help. Bobby finally looked up from his phone. The flight's pretty long, Mom. 12 hours to Athens. At your age. He shrugged like that explained everything. Besides, someone responsible needs to watch the house. At my age, 74 years old, and suddenly I was too fragile to sit on an airplane, but strong enough to be their unpaid house sitter. I watched them leave that morning, Bobby, Patricia, and my 2 granddaughters, Emma and Sophie. The girls hugged me goodbye, Emma whispering, I wish you were coming, Grandma. But they were already looking toward the door, toward their adventure, toward their life that apparently didn't have room for me in it. The house felt different after they left. Bigger somehow, but also smaller. Like it was echoing with all the words I should have said but didn't. I watered Patricia's precious orchids and thought about how she'd measured out exactly 2 tablespoons of plant food. Like she didn't trust me to figure it out myself. I collected their mail and organized it into neat piles they'd probably ignore when they got back. I sat in my chair, the old recliner Bobby keeps threatening to replace, and I felt invisible. But you know what? Sometimes being invisible means people can't see what you're really doing. I found their travel documents on Patricia's desk, boarding passes, hotel confirmations, the works. They'd bought trip insurance, of course. Smart travelers always do. And trip insurance, well, it covers cancellations for any reason. I called the airline that afternoon. Used my sweetest old lady voice, the one that makes people want to help you cross the street. Oh my, I told the nice young man on the phone, I'm so sorry to bother you, but there's been a family emergency. We need to cancel our trip to Greece. It was surprisingly easy. They refunded everything, flights, hotels, even the rental car they'd booked. I got a confirmation email with a cancellation number, and everything. Then I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I bought a plane ticket for myself. One way to Athens. Not because I wanted to follow them. Lord knows I had no interest in running into my son and his wife on some Greek island. No, I bought that ticket because for the first time in years, I remembered that I was still a person with my own dreams, my own desires, my own right to see the world. My neighbor Gladys, sweet Gladys who's been my friend for 23 years, she thought I'd lost my mind. Mildred, she said when I knocked on her door with my spare keys, you can't just run off to Europe by yourself. What if something happens? What if you get lost? Gladys, I said, I've been lost for 15 years. At least in Greece, the lost will be honest. I didn't pack much. 1 small suitcase, my passport that was indeed still valid for 2 more years, and a little notebook I'd found in my desk drawer. On the cover, I'd written things I never said out loud. It was empty when I started, but I had a feeling that was about to change. The flight to Athens was long, but you know what? I loved every minute of it. I sat next to a young couple heading to their honeymoon, and they were so excited, so full of life. The bride, she couldn't have been more than 25, kept showing me pictures on her phone of all the places they planned to visit. Have you been to Greece before? She asked me. No, I said, but I've been dreaming about it for 40 years. And that was true. When I was 34, Harold, my late husband, and I had planned a trip to Greece for our 10th anniversary. We'd saved up for months, bought guidebooks, even started learning a few Greek phrases. But then his mother got sick, and we spent the money on her medical bills instead. "We'll go next year," Harold said, but next year I was pregnant with Bobby. The year after that, Harold's business was struggling. There was always something more important than our dreams. Harold died 8 years ago, and I don't think we ever took a single trip that wasn't to visit family or attend a funeral. But there I was, 74 years old, watching the Greek islands appear below my airplane window, like something out of a fairy tale. Athens was everything I'd imagined, and nothing like I'd expected. The heat hit me like a wall when I stepped off the plane, but it felt alive, vibrant. The airport was chaos, people shouting in languages I couldn't understand, families reuniting, travelers rushing to catch connections, and me, just standing there with my little suitcase, feeling more awake than I had in years. I found a small hotel in the Plaka district, nothing fancy, just a clean room with a tiny balcony that looked out over narrow cobblestone streets. The owner was a woman about my age named Anastasia, and when I checked in, she looked at me curiously. "You are traveling alone?" she asked in heavily accented English. "Yes," I said, and for the first time, it didn't sound sad. It sounded like freedom. That first evening, I sat on my little balcony with a glass of wine, something I never did at home because Patricia always made comments about day drinking, and I opened my notebook. I wrote my first entry. I never said out loud that I wanted to see the world before I died. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. I got lost on purpose. I left my hotel with no map, no plan, no schedule. I just walked, through narrow alleys that smelled like jasmine and coffee, past little shops selling things I didn't need, but suddenly wanted, through squares where old men played chess, and tourists took pictures of everything. I ended up at the Acropolis, standing in front of the Parthenon with tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears, joyful tears. I was looking at something that had stood for over 2,000 years. Something that had survived wars, and earthquakes, and time itself. And I was there to see it. Me, Mildred Catherine Wells from Portland, Oregon, standing in the same spot where ancient Greeks had walked and lived and dreamed. A tour guide, a young woman with the most beautiful English accent, noticed me crying, and came over. "Are you all right, love?" she asked. "I'm perfect," I told her. "I'm absolutely perfect." And I was, for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Doing exactly what I wanted to do, with no one to take care of but myself. I spent 5 days in Athens, and every day I felt more like myself. I ate in little tavernas, where the owners treated me like family. I visited museums, where I stood in front of ancient sculptures, and marveled at the fact that people had been creating beautiful things for thousands of years. I bought postcards that I never sent, because I realized I didn't want to share this experience with anyone who hadn't wanted to share theirs with me. On my last night in Athens, I was sitting in a cafe in Monastiraki, when an older woman at the next table started talking to me. Her name was Beatrice, and she was from Chicago, traveling alone through Europe. "Divorce?" she asked, nodding at my ringless left hand. "Widowed," I said. "Kids, 1 son, 2 granddaughters, and they're okay with you traveling alone?" I laughed, actually laughed out loud for the first time in months. "They don't know I'm here. They think I'm at home watering their plants." Beatrice's eyes lit up. "Oh honey, I like you already. Mind if I join you?" That's how I met my travel companion. The first real friend I'd made in years, who knew me as Mildred, not as somebody's mother, or grandmother, or widow. Beatrice was 71. A retired English teacher who'd spent her whole career taking care of other people's children, and her whole marriage, taking care of a husband who never appreciated her. 6 months after he died, she'd bought a one-way ticket to Europe. "I figure I've got maybe 15 good years left," she told me over ouzo that tasted like medicine, but made everything funnier. "I'm not spending them doing what other people think I should do." We decided to travel together, at least for a while. 2 old ladies with small suitcases and big dreams, taking trains and buses to places we'd only seen in pictures. Florence was our first stop together. Have you ever stood in front of Michelangelo's David? I mean really stood there, not just glanced at it in a hurry, because your tour group was moving on. We spent an hour just looking at that statue, marveling at the fact that someone could take a piece of marble and make it look so alive, so human. "You know what I never said out loud?" I told Beatrice, as we sat in a cafe near the Uffizi Gallery. What's that, Mildred? I wanted to be an artist once. Before I got married, before Bobby was born, I used to paint. Watercolors mostly, little landscapes and flowers. I was pretty good at it too. What happened? Life happened. Harold needed clean shirts for work. Bobby needed lunch money and help with homework. The house needed cleaning. The bills needed paying. Somewhere along the way, I put my paints in a box in the basement and forgot they were there. But it was mine. The first thing I'd created for myself in decades. In my notebook that night, I wrote, I never said out loud that I missed making beautiful things. We took the train to Portugal next. Lisbon was full of hills and colored tiles and the sound of fado music drifting from doorways. Beatrice got food poisoning from some shellfish. Nothing serious, just enough to keep her in bed for 2 days. And you know what? I took care of her. But this time, it felt different. I wasn't taking care of her because it was expected, because it was my job, because I didn't have a choice. I was doing it because I cared about her, because she was my friend, because I wanted to. While she recovered, I walked through the narrow streets of Alfama, listening to the sad, beautiful songs that seemed to seep from the very walls. Fado music is all about saudade, a Portuguese word that means a deep longing for something that's absent. As I listened, I realized I'd been living with saudade my whole adult life. Longing for the person I used to be, the dreams I used to have, the life I might have lived. But here's the thing about saudade, it's not just sadness, it's bittersweet. It acknowledges loss, but it also celebrates the beauty of what once was, and what might still be. I bought a postcard of Lisbon, and wrote on it, Dear Emma and Sophie, Grandma is learning to sing again. Love, Mildred. I didn't send it. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. But I kept it. From Lisbon, we went to Seville. Oh, Seville. If Athens had awakened something in me, and Florence had inspired me, Seville set my soul on fire. The city pulsed with music and color and life. We stayed near the cathedral, and every evening we could hear guitar music, and the sharp crack of flamenco heels on cobblestones. One night, we found ourselves in a tiny bar, where an old man was playing guitar, and a woman who had to be at least 65, was dancing flamenco. Not performing for tourists, just dancing because the music moved her. Her hair was silver like mine, her face was lined with age, but when she danced, she was ageless, timeless, magnificent. I want to do that, I whispered to Beatrice. Dance flamenco. Mildred, we're not exactly spring chickens. No, I said, I want to move like that. Like I'm not afraid. Like I remember what it feels like to be alive in my own body. After the woman finished dancing, I walked up to her. My Spanish was terrible, but somehow we managed to communicate. Her name was Carmen, and she was 73 years old. She'd been dancing since she was 5. Nunca es demasiado tarde, she told me. It's never too late. She taught me 3 basic flamenco steps right there in that little bar, with Beatrice clapping time, and the guitar player smiling at these 2 crazy American women learning to dance at our age. I wasn't good at it. My knees creaked, my back ached, and I probably looked ridiculous. But for those few minutes, I felt powerful. I felt connected to something primal, and joyful, and entirely my own. In my notebook that night, I wrote, I never said out loud that I wanted to dance like no one was watching. We were in Barcelona when I finally got the phone call I'd been dreading. Bobby's voice was tight with anger when I answered. Mom, where the hell are you? I was sitting in Park Güell, looking out over the city, watching the sunset paint gaudy mosaics, in shades of gold and red. I'm in Barcelona, sweetheart, I said calmly. Barcelona, Barcelona, Spain? Mom, what are you doing? We came home early from Greece, because Patricia was worried about you. The house was fine, but you weren't there. Gladys said you'd gone to Europe, but we thought she was confused. We've been calling for 3 days. You came home early from Greece, I asked. Why? There was a pause. The trip was, it was cancelled. Some mix-up with the airline. We couldn't get it sorted out. I smiled. Oh, what a shame. I'm sorry your vacation didn't work out. Mom, you need to come home. Right now. This is insane. You can't just disappear to Europe without telling anyone. What if something had happened to you? Something did happen to me, Bobby, I said. I remembered who I am. Mom, please, I'm booking you a flight home tonight. Where exactly are you? What hotel? I looked around at the beautiful park, at the families having picnics, at the young couples taking selfies, at the old men playing chess. at life happening all around me. No, I said. No, Bobby, I'm not coming home yet. I'm not done. Done with what? Done living. The line was quiet for a long moment. Then Bobby said, Mom, you're scaring me. I'm sorry about that, son, but I've been scared for 15 years, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being treated like I'm already dead just because I'm old. I'm tired of being useful instead of valued. I'm tired of being your backup plan. That's not. We don't treat you like. When was the last time you asked me what I wanted, Bobby? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my interests, my thoughts about anything other than whether I could babysit or house sit or help with something you needed? Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know, he said quietly. I love you, son. I love you and Patricia and the girls, more than my own life. But I've spent so much time loving you that I forgot to love myself. I'm not ready to come home yet because I'm not ready to disappear again. I hung up before he could answer. Beatrice and I spent 2 more weeks together, visiting Madrid and San Sebastian, taking cooking classes and art classes, and even a photography workshop. We laughed until our sides hurt and cried over glasses of wine, and shared stories about the lives we'd lived, and the dreams we'd deferred. In Madrid, I bought a beautiful scarf, silk, with colors I'd never worn before. Bright blues and greens and golds, that made my eyes look alive again. In San Sebastian, I ate oysters for the first time in my life. I'd always been afraid to try them, but Beatrice dared me, and they tasted like the ocean and possibility. Every day, I wrote in my notebook. I never said out loud that I was lonely. I never said out loud that I felt invisible. I never said out loud that I wanted to matter to someone. I never said out loud that I was angry about all the years I wasted being grateful for scraps. But I also wrote other things. I never said out loud that I was proud of raising a good man, even if he forgot how to see me. I never said out loud that I loved being a grandmother, even when it became my only identity. I never said out loud that taking care of people gave my life meaning, even when it cost me myself. Eventually, Beatrice had to go home to Chicago. Her daughter was getting married, and she wanted to be there. We cried when we said goodbye at the airport in Madrid. She was flying west, back to her old life, and I was taking a train south, to the coast of Spain, to figure out what came next. Will you go home? She asked, as we hugged goodbye. Eventually, I said. But first, I have some letters to write. I ended up here, in this little coastal town, whose name I can barely pronounce. I rented a small apartment overlooking the sea, and I've been here for 3 weeks now, writing letters I should have written years ago. I wrote to Bobby first. A real letter, not an email or a text, but pages and pages of everything I'd never been able to say. I told him about the little boy who used to bring me dandelions, and call them flowers. I told him about the teenager who wrote me a Mother's Day card that said I was his hero. I told him about the young man who called me crying the night before his wedding, because he was scared he wouldn't be a good husband. I reminded him of all the times we'd been a team, all the ways we'd supported each other, all the love that had gotten buried under years of routine and assumption. But I also told him how it felt to be treated like furniture in my own family, how it felt to be valued for what I could do instead of who I was, how it felt to realize that I'd become so focused on being useful that I'd forgotten to be human. I wrote to Patricia too. I apologized for canceling their trip, not because I was sorry I'd done it, but because I was sorry it had been necessary. I told her that I understood she was trying to protect her family, but that I was part of that family too. I told her that I didn't want to be a burden, but I also didn't want to be invisible. And I wrote to Emma and Sophie, my granddaughters. I told them about their great-grandmother, my mother, who had died when Bobby was small. I told them about their grandfather Harold, and how he used to dance with me in the kitchen while dinner was cooking. I told them about the watercolor paintings I used to make, about the books I'd read, about the dreams I'd had when I was their age. I told them that being a grandmother was the greatest joy of my life, but that I had been other things to a daughter. A wife, a friend, an artist, a dreamer, a woman with her own story to tell. Most importantly, I told them that they should never, ever let anyone convince them that they're too old to chase their dreams. She pulls out a well-worn notebook. Yesterday Emma, my youngest granddaughter, she's 16 now, she called me, not Bobby, not Patricia, but Emma herself. Grandma, she said, and her voice was shaky. Grandma, I found your notebook. My heart stopped. What notebook, sweetheart? The one you left on your desk at home. Things I never said out loud. I'm sorry, I wasn't snooping. I was just looking for a pen, and it was open, and I saw what you'd written. I held my breath. Grandma, I started my own list. Things I've never said out loud, and there are so many things, Grandma, so many things I've been afraid to say. We talked for 2 hours. 2 hours of real conversation, the kind I'd been longing for. She told me about the boy she liked, but was afraid to talk to. About the college she wanted to attend, that her parents thought was too far away. About the poetry she wrote in secret because Patricia had told her it wasn't practical. She told me she missed me. Not just missed having me around to help with things, but missed me. Missed talking to me, missed my stories, missed the way I used to listen to her like what she said mattered. When are you coming home, Grandma? She asked. Soon, I told her, but I'm not coming home to disappear again. I'm coming home as myself, as Mildred, and I need you to help me stay that way. I will, she said, I promise. I'm flying home tomorrow. Not because anyone has demanded it, not because I've run out of money or gotten scared, but because I'm ready. I'm ready to have the conversations I should have had years ago. I'm ready to set boundaries I should have set when Bobby first got married. I'm ready to be a grandmother who has her own life, her own interests, her own voice. I'm ready to show my granddaughters what it looks like when a woman refuses to disappear just because she's gotten older. I don't know what will happen when I get home. Bobby and Patricia might still see me as an inconvenience they have to manage. They might still expect me to be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they throw my way. But I know who I am now, and I won't forget again. I'm Mildred Catherine Wells. I'm 74 years old. I can paint watercolors, and dance flamenco, badly and eat oysters, and travel by myself, and make friends with strangers, and cancel plane tickets when people take me for granted. I spent 40 years taking care of everyone else, and I'll probably spend whatever years I have left taking care of people too, because that's part of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of it, but I'll do it as myself, not as some shadow of a person who exists only to serve others. If you're watching this and you're my age, or close to it, I want you to know something. It's not too late. Whatever dream you put in a box, whatever voice you silenced, whatever part of yourself you sacrificed for other people, it's not too late to get it back. If you're younger, don't wait. Don't spend decades being so grateful for love that you forget to demand respect. Don't be so afraid of being selfish that you forget to have a self. And if you have an older person in your life, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, please remember that they're not just their relationship to you. They had lives before you existed, and they still have dreams and desires and stories to tell. Ask them about those things. See them as whole people, not just the roles they play in your life. She picks up her small suitcase and starts walking away from the bench. I have a plane to catch, and a life to reclaim. Wish me luck. Oh, and Bobby. Patricia, if you're watching this, I love you both. But I'm not your backup plan anymore. I'm not your built-in babysitter, or your house sitter, or your safety net. I'm your mother and your mother-in-law, and your children's grandmother. But first and always, I'm Mildred. And Mildred has places to go.